I just learned that someone on Tumblr roleplayed as OSHA for years, as in made an account pretending to be the official OSHA account and posted things that could ostensibly be official OSHA posts, citing specific regulations and such. Incredible. Absolutely bonkers that I'm now one of those weirdos you hear about on Twitter. So why did you stop? Commit to the bit. I committed to the bit so hard that I also committed misdemeanor impersonation of a government official. US state borders, but they are based off rivers and mountains. Hashtag get Europed. I think we should do this, but leave Colorado alone so there's just an extremely jarring rectangle in one part of this. I like how you think. As a Coloradian myself, I'm also fine with this. Just leave us alone. Anonymous asks, can you please stop dunking on Elon? He's autistic. That's the reason he acts weird. You are bullying an autistic person. Is his special interest underpaying his employees, Lamau? Hyperfixating on exploiting children in cobalt mines. I started Hebrew, which is why I've been dead on this blog, but I don't think I can ever properly convey to you guys the sheer cultural whiplash of spending years learning Japanese from Japanese teachers and then trying to learn Hebrew from an Israeli. Japanese, you walk into class already apologizing for being alive. Hebrew, you walk into class, the teacher insults you and you are expected to insult her back. Japanese, conjulates every single verb based on degree of intended politeness, never mind keigo and honorifics. Hebrew, someone asked my teacher how to say excuse me, and she laughed for several seconds before saying we shouldn't worry about remembering that since we'll never need to say it. Japanese, if you get one stroke wrong, the entire kanji is incomprehensible. Hebrew, cursive? Script? Do whatever you want. You don't even have to write the vowels out unless you feel like it. Japanese, the closest thing there is to bastard is an extremely direct you pronoun. Hebrew translates directly. The span of human experience is so insane. Japanese, you, derogatory. Hebrew, affectionate. Whoa, dude, when I heard about radfems, I thought it would be some most radical females, but these chicks are saying some bogus things about other babes. Whoa. Someone will say something completely reasonable like, people deserve food and shelter, and then some guy who would actually benefit from that just goes, nuh-uh. It's my favorite thing in the world when villains are written too well and it like crosses the line from realistic motivation to, wait, why are we supposed to disagree with them again? It's so fun when the evil girlies are right and they're also just killing people about it. Supervillains will be like, equal rights would be nice to have, and then stab someone, and I'm just like, okay, slay. I see Hollywood is now very into the idea of buying something once and then owning it forever and being able to make infinite copies, which isn't quite the message they imparted upon me in my childhood. In the spirit of their own long-held stance, you wouldn't download an actor. I can't believe Americans on TV really say rock, paper, scissors, like it's paper, scissors, rock. Oh my god, do you IRL Americans actually say rock, paper, scissors? RB this with whether you say paper, scissors, rock or rock, paper, scissors. Me normally. Linguistic differences are so interesting and cool. I love hearing dialectal variations. Me reading paper, scissors, rock with my open two eyeballs. The Lord is testing me. We lost it when songs started being uploaded on YouTube called speed up plus pitched TikTok version. Like, call it what it's called. It's Nightcore. Respect the ones who came before you and put an anime girl on the thumbnail. Alright, so we got two fans blowing at each other, presumably, and then this paper airplane, I guess, is flying between them. Science. I think my brain just exploded. Science side of Tumblr, please explain. Air on bottom go whoosh. Air on top go whoosh. Air on front go whoosh. Little plane stay still. Thanks, science side of Tumblr. Luffy would never. Oh, he would. Why the f*** is there a big spider on my bedroom wall? It doesn't look like any spider I've seen in my entire life. What the f***? Are you sure it's a spider? Yes, I am. It looks like this. Oh, that's a wolf spider. They taste like celery and pork and they aren't poisonous. Why is it in my room? And why do you know what it tastes like? Why do you know what a wolf spider tastes like? Nom nom. What? Yummy yummy in my tummy tummy. When and why did you eat a wolf spider? Bandcamp, 2019. There was an infestation. I started eating them to get rid of them. I have since eaten cockroaches, crickets, grasshoppers, and those little green grass spiders. The greenies taste like vegetarian sausage. Why was your solution to eat them? I mean, no one one else was gonna. I want to decompose in a bog. Well, you clearly don't know the first thing about bogs, clout chaser. In the bog is like the opposite of decomposition. Get pickled, idiot. Huge fan of the phrase, get pickled, idiot. Guys, do you know that one meme where there's a girl in like a bodyguard ordering drinks and the waiter give them the wrong drink so they switch them on the last panel because I can't fing it? Well, I suppose this is it. I got it. Raw. My friend's little brother, nonverbal, used to hide people's shoes if he liked the person because it meant they had to stay longer. The more difficult it was to find your shoes, the more he liked you. One day my cousin came over and she was a bitch. When it was time to leave, my friend's brother handed her shoes directly to her and she went on and on about how he must have a crush on her because he only helped her. Aw, aren't you sweet? You got me my shoes. Get off my property. Have you done therapy? No, never. Have you purposefully avoided it? No, I felt I didn't need it. You're just all good. Yeah, I'm totally cool. No problems. I had no problems to solve. My parents were really sweet, very sensitive, very understanding and supportive. They were lovely. I had a lovely childhood. So you've never stayed up at night being like, why do I make movies where people pull each other's organs out of their bodies? No, because I know that, as George Bernard Shaw said, conflict is the essence of drama. You don't make a movie about nice people who are all nice to each other. That'd be so boring. You might want to live like that, but you don't make a movie like that. I yearn for your placidity. Well, the placid nature is genuine. I want what David Cronenberg has. This reminds me of how Junji Ito, world-renowned horror mangaka who makes some of the most disturbing manga ever, is actually a super happy and chill guy who loves cats. One of my favorite thing I've learned about animals studies is that you should avoid using colorful leg bands when you're banding birds because you can accidentally completely skew the data because female birds prefer males with colorful bands. Apparently, if you put a red band on a male red-winged blackbird, his harem size can double, so like you can completely frick up the natural reproduction of a group of birds by giving a guy a bracelet so stylish that the females cannot resist him. Me, putting a red bracelet on the leg of a male red-winged blackbird? On God, we gonna get you some bro. Fun history facts. One of the 31 people arrested at Stonewall on June 28, 1969 was American folk singer Dave Van Ronk, who was not at the Stonewall Inn at the time and was cis and straight as far as I'm aware. He'd been eating dinner at a nearby restaurant when he noticed a riot happening, said, well, I suppose I should go see what the fuss is about, stepped outside and immediately started throwing bricks at the cops. The Barbie movie is ending relationships left and right. That which can be destroyed by the Barbie movie should be. Listen, I know each actor brings their own spice to a role, but I just can't take Timothée Chalamet's Wonka seriously. Where's the madness behind his eyes? The malice? The complete disregard for the laws of mankind and decency? This man makes me fear that I'll be shoved into a taffy machine at the slightest provocation. Today I learned Tom Clancy's stories were so detailed, many assumed he was ex-military. In fact, he never served. He wrote most of his stories in his spare time whilst working as an insurance salesman. He was actually interrogated by the feds for this. He used logic to figure out the most efficient way the inside of a ship would be laid out. Said ship was being a vessel in the United States Navy. It was so accurate that the DoD wanted to know who was giving him details about ship layouts because his description of areas included places civilians aren't allowed to see ever. I was on a bus once when this guy tapped my knee and pointed out that we were the only two people not looking at their phones and then asked what I was thinking about. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I relive the moment I saw his manic pixie dream girl hopes draining from his eyes and fill up with confusion and boredom as I explained to him I was thinking about how much West Mexico is ignored by other Mesoamerican archaeologists and locked him into the conversation until it was my stop. Don't lose the notes. They always see pixie and dream and girl, but always forget the terrible, awesome driving power of manic. Someone just emailed me a professional email that ended in, we could have snipped it in the butt earlier. Snipped it in the butt. Nipped it in the bud. Correct. Nipped it in the butt. Incorrect. Snipped it in the butt. Incorrector. This linguistic problem is only going to continue getting worse unless we in the ass now. Overstimulation and sensory overload really is like, sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of my shirt tag being itchy and these two strands of hair touching my face and the TV and one of my shoelaces being undone and air touching me and the plane flying overhead and my own thoughts about remembering to buy hummus. I can't talk, I have socks on. There's a ton of you can get in life if you're willing to submit yourself to the mortifying horror of asking for it. Me, can I take this exam a different time? Professor, sure. Me, crying on the inside from the effort of asking. Thanks. My sister saw two unaccompanied little children in a trench coat giggling amongst themselves yesterday, and I am absolutely howling. I see one fully functional adult in two photos. What's the joke? My old man once said to me, "Your thoughts are so random and unconnected. We were just talking about the carnival. How did you get started on wasps?" So I told him, they're not unconnected. We were talking about going to the carnival, and the carnival is on the same fairgrounds they used to use for the rodeo, and one time at the rodeo, my brother spilled Sprite on himself, and a bee went up to his shirt and stung him. And bees die when they sting, but wasps don't. And I was wondering why, so I asked you. And he said, that makes no sense. And for the life of me, I can't understand how anyone thinks of anything if not by this exact process. I'm convinced that some girls with ponytails move their heads a little more enthusiastically because they like how their ponytails swing around. We do. Secrets revealed. Boring people the second they see something a little creative, silly, experimental, or even just a little confusing. What the f*** did I just watch? What were they smoking? Everything in moderation except for animated women who are slightly unhinged. I would argue that Azula and Jinx are a bit more than slightly unhinged, would even go as far as to say they are no longer connected to the doorframe. Conversation that Tumblr is not ready for. A vampire's fangs are also its reproductive organs. I scrolled past that before realizing OP was being literal and not just making some kind of weird joke. Oh please, the penetration of the vampire's bite as a metaphor for sexual penetration is like horny classic vampire symbolism 101. Taking this to the next level of vampire bite as literal reproductive penetration is a conversation Tumblr is thoroughly and uniquely prepared for, and one that we will all severely regret very shortly. Oh, I'm ready to be a spectator for this conversation. I'm ready. So when a vampire doesn't want to become a vaddie, they use a set of these, right? Sir. Ooh, so that's what those are for. Vampire condom. Vampire dude to his vampire friend. Wow, looks like there's only one coffin. What do we do? Other vampire dude who reads a lot of fanfiction. We could share it. And they were two mates. Oh my god, they were two mates. If someone gave you $200 because you're ugly, would you take the money? Absolutely. I'm ugly. Not stupid. Intelligence. Throwback to the time my classics professor asked, does anyone know who Sappho is? And I immediately replied, she's the OG lesbian. And my professor yelled, exactly, and wrote the OG lesbian on the whiteboard. That's awesome. I once won first place in my university's poker AI competition. We had 2 hours to build a bot, and first place was a new MacBook. I was a freshman and had no idea what I was doing. My algorithm was literally, if is my turn, go all in. I broke all the other bots who started folding every single time. Everyone else made AIs, but only OP was playing poker. For being a shadow in two dandelions, that is a surprisingly unnerving image. Alright, now I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here. It's a stick figure slurping up some mango, I guess? This actually reminds me of when I was in second grade and it was snack time, but we had been misbehaving, so they gave us assigned seats on the rug, and I had to sit next to this girl whose snack was mangoes, but I didn't like her because she bullied me, so I told the teacher that I was allergic to mangoes, and I couldn't sit next to her, and my teacher was like, oh, it doesn't say anything about any food allergies on this paper right here. You might have to update the school nurse on that. So I went to the school nurse's office, and she called my mom, and my mom was like, and I genuinely have no idea why, but my mom was like, yeah, sure, she's allergic to mangoes. So then the school had on paper that I was allergic to mangoes, so at this point I was like in way too deep, so I just pretended to be allergic to mangoes for the next 5 years, like I went full throttle into this lie. I even came up with a backstory to explain how I found out I was allergic to mangoes. It got to the point where even my parents just genuinely believed I was allergic to mangoes until one day, when I was 12, I just came clean and explained the story to my parents, and they were like, yeah, that sounds like something you do. But anyway, I never got to enjoy my newfound mango freedom until about a year later when I was at my friend's house and they had mangoes, and I was like, actually, I haven't had a mango in 6 years, and they were like, OMG, they're so good, you have to try some. So I did, and they were so good. Like, I look exactly like the picture above. I was gobbling that shit up like Cookie Monster. It was insane, and anyway, basically 20 minutes later, I broke out in hives. So yeah, I give this an F because there was no punctuation, just one big run-on sentence. I didn't know when to stop. Trans women can compete in Miss Italia. 100 plus trans men signed up in protest. This is my new favorite headline I've seen all year, Lamau. Become ungovernable. I took courage, used my dead name, and signed up for Miss Italy because fighting transphobia is intersectional, and even though I'm not a trans woman, I've decided to fight for their rights. Okay, this is 1, funny, 2, courageous, 3, how solidarity works, and 4, based. cloaked in the fur of their slaughtered brethren. You have a fundamental misunderstanding of how yarn is made. The problem with horror now is there's no men in little tank tops and booty shorts. They were hunted to extinction. Oh, damn it. Did you know that proper pearl necklaces actually have knots between each pearl? This is to stop the pearls from rubbing up against each other, potentially causing damage and discoloration to each bead, and also so that if the string breaks, it's unlikely that any more than 1 or 2 pearls will fall off the string. Pearl necklaces and bracelets, for that matter, need restringing regularly to make sure that the string isn't stretched, frayed, or otherwise damaged, which would put the necklace at risk of breaking, and when they are restringed properly, new knots are always tied between each pearl. This post brought to you by the Stop Making Pearls Scatter Everywhere When You Break a Fancy Lady's Necklace When Murdering Her thriller writers. All you're doing is revealing she was wearing plastic beads, gang. But the drama. My wife is constantly mocking me for how lightly done I like my toast. Your hot bread is done, she says to me. Disgusting. I don't say that. Hot would imply it's been in the toaster for more than 15 seconds, lol. Your lightly warmed bread is done, I tell you. One of these days I'm not even gonna put it in the toaster, just gonna breathe real hard on the bread for a minute, and you'll be like, wow, this is perfectly done. Thank you so much for warming up my bread for me, honey. I'm so glad we're married. I love you. I say to you every time your mean little ass makes toast for me. Posts that be like, if I were a monster that had to eat people, I would just eat horrible people, are so absurd to me. How often do you see known criminals on the street, billionaires out for a nightly stroll around town? Effectively never. If I have to drag myself to the grocery store, you think it's gonna be any easier for me to hunt Bezos and company every time my stomach growls? I can't bother to plan meals more than a day in advance. How am I gonna perform whole-ass detective work to confirm someone's a serial killer before I eat them? Y'all got that much time on your hands? Planning 5-course meals every night of the week? Don't make me laugh. Eat a pedestrian and tragically wrestle with guilt like the rest of us, idiot. Absolutely something Venom would say to Eddie. Alright, so Fred's collared shirt is the same color as his pants, so that could imply it is all one piece. Delete this. May I present this image from Legend of the Vampire? Wait, Fred's wearing a tank top under all that shit? What is the fucking truth? He has multiple outfits that all look identical while having completely different construction. I'd like to add Dickie collars for consideration. I mean, cartoon design is based off of 70s, 80s fashion, so it's not wrong. It's rather likely. What are those little fellows that live in the sand called? I'm forgetting the word. The little fellows that can hurt you with their hands and they have an armored body. They're these little men that bury themselves in sand and swim in the ocean sometimes. Crabs? Yes, sorry for the foolish question. No such thing in this sub. Obsessed with the fact that there's a Redditor out there who calls themselves Pissbot, but carries themselves with the unflappable politeness of a confused Victorian gentleman. What is the plot of Super Zeros? A hero is made of H and Eero, an alien species called Kaseichu is plotting to gradually eradicate the human race by controlling and draining humanity's sexual energy. 5 of the sexiest high school students on Earth must band together to defeat the alien menace. Yeah, that sounds about right. Things I, a highly educated adult, don't know off the top of my head. Which months have 30 days and which have 31, what the nth letter of the alphabet is. Basically, nobody knows the second one, it just doesn't come up often enough. Months, though, those are important. We are in a month right now. Again, it keeps happening. When will it end? Midnight on the 30th. No, I mean, when will we stop having months? Something that will never not be funny to me in DN was the faces Light would make when no one was looking. Like if anyone caught him once, the jig was up. MF really stood there in front of everyone like this. If only someone stayed back and overheard him twerking on Elle's grave screaming, "That's right, I win!" Motherfucker would have been put down much quicker. People really act like the Death Note corrupted him. This crazy bastard was screaming he was a god in episode 2. He saw a slippery slope and decided to grab a sled. In the first episode, he was whining about how the world was diseased and poisoned and needed to be fixed by someone. He's the anime version of Walter White. He didn't just grab a sled, he crashed a race car down that slope the second it came into view. Death Note wasn't a story about power-corrupting morals. It was a story about an absolute lunatic chimpanzee of a man who got that button you can press to kill someone for $1 million and never get caught, and decided, even though he never got the money, and someone very definitely did die, to just mash that thing at terminal velocity like he was playing a Mario Party minigame for keeps. In the first episode, he got names of prisoners from Japan and the US, if I'm remembering correctly, two famously extremely flawed court systems, but he made a list of possibly innocent people and slam dunked them into hell on literally day one. Why do people keep blaming superheroes for property damage and civilian casualties when the supervillains in Alien Armada was blowing everything up? Me sees Northerners complain about studio apartments costing over $1K a month. Me, in Louisiana, laughs as write my rent check for $400. Me grabs my sword to defend myself against the man-sized mosquitoes burning crosses in my front yard. I can't tell if this is making fun of Northerners or Southerners. Turns out the potassium nitrate I had is fertilizer for algae to feed my a nitrate salt at all, and I am pissed. I think a slug needs a more varied diet than just algae. This is the worst typo in the world. I feel like Samus Aran, when she's not on a mission, would have a Tony Hawk type experience with people not recognizing her without her armor. Like she'd get carded buying alcohol or something and the cashier would go, "Samus Aran? Ha, it's spelled just like the bounty hunter too. I wonder what he's up to now." DIY culture. I made it myself for free. Free equals 3 hours, profanity in 4 languages, 1 smash thumb, 3 milliliters of blood, and 50 pounds of materials you're pretending cost you nothing because you got them so long ago you've moved house with them 4 times. Wow, and here I thought call-out culture was dead. About to be sacked from work. Can I hire a clown to support me in my meeting? I'm up at work and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be sacked. They've invited me in for a meeting where they're going to sack me. They've told me I can bring someone to support me. I want to hire a clown to support me. I'll get him to blow balloon animals and to mime stuff. Can I do this? Can they stop me? Man being fired brings emotional support clown to meeting. My God. I got fired. This is the dude that hired the clown. I love that you can just say, this is the dude that hired the clown, and everyone immediately knows what you're talking about. I really hate it when people say you shouldn't use the computer or watch TV before going to bed, and instead you should read a book because you need winding down time or you won't sleep. Haha, good one. Do you know what happens if I start a book before bed? I end up finishing it, that's what. Gonna start saying, you couldn't make X movie today, but for reasons unrelated to political correctness. You couldn't make Home Alone 2 Lost in New York today because the strict airport regulations put into place after 9/11 make it nigh impossible for a child to simply walk onto the wrong plane. You couldn't make American Psycho today because Christian Bale would actually kill Jared Leto for real. I don't see that as a deal breaker. I know there's loads of things to criticize about Marvel movies, but it's a bit funny how everyone says Marvel villains are just leftist strawmen, and then you actually look at the list of Marvel villains and it's basically billionaire CEO war profiteer, billionaire CEO war profiteer, racist alien emperor, entitled god prince, the Nazis.